Hello and welcome to the San Diego Union-Tribune Festival of Books. I'm Jose Cruz. I'm the CEO for the San Diego Council on Literacy, and I'll say more about that later. But we're just so happy to be hosting this particular panel. This is the middle grade STEM panel, and with us today are two authors, Theanne Griffith. I want to ask you more about what you've done. This is Theanne Griffith, and she is a writer of The Magnificent Makers. And I think one of the books is Writing Sound Waves. Is that correct?
Correct. Writing Sound Waves.
Yeah, I have my copy too. It was a lot of fun. And then there's Kim Dwinell. She's also, and I want to ask you, writer, illustrator. Are you doing both?
I am.
My goodness. Right. And she's doing the science of surfing and the Surfside girls. And the one I have here is the Guide to the Ocean. So a little visual there. And before we get started, I just wanted to say I've read your works and I've enjoyed them, and I get it, but I'm going to pretend I don't get it, and so I'm going to ask you some questions because this is a thing, whether it's books with illustrations or what we're calling graphic novels or graphic STEM books. Very exciting, engaging. I learned a lot, so I want to get into what brought you to do this. Are you teachers, etc.? Theanne, let's start with you. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I am actually, in addition to being a children's book author, I'm also a scientist. I am an assistant professor at the University of California, Davis, and I've always been extremely passionate about science. I was definitely like one of those science kids, always outside, getting into stuff, messing with fireflies and crayfish and things like that. But I've also always been a really avid reader and, was also the one checking out massive stacks of books at the library. And so I feel really fortunate to be able to combine those two passions in the Magnificent Maker series.
Yeah. I mean, you're a writer too. So you're a scientist and you're a writer. And you and Kim, you both have a voice. I mean, I was expecting, I said, who are these people going to be? I was expecting teenagers, and take that as a compliment. It's very youthful sounding. So thanks for that introduction, Theanne. Scientist, excellent. I haven't met a lot of scientists. Kim Dwinell, she has done she's a writer and illustrator of The Science of Surfing. Again, a lot of fun reading your stuff. Tell us about yourself.
Well, I grew up all over the planet because I'm a Marine brat, but always on an ocean because my dad was a Marine. And I just had this affinity for the ocean. I'm a lifelong surfer. I was a beach lifeguard in college, and I that's my happy place. And I grew up reading a lot of Nancy Drew, and I like Scooby-Doo and mystery adventure. And I I also am a professor. I teach at Cal State Long Beach. I teach in the animation department. So I used to work in animation. And when I decided to have a family, I love sequential narrative. I like drawing lots of pictures over and over to tell a story. And I discovered graphic novels, and it's sort of like I could work in animation, sort of, but be at home doing it, making my books with my kid. So yeah, I'm really passionate about the ocean, and I'm really happy that my publisher got behind the idea I had behind The Science of Surfing.
And so did you do research for your content, or is this stuff that you already knew?
Holy moly, I did. I don't know if you're talking to me.
Yes. I'll start with you. You go back to Theanne. Yes.
I did a ton of research, and I tell you what, there's a little anxiety in that because you don't know. Like when you're crafting a story, you can have multiple outcomes, but when you're talking about facts, science is science, and I better be right. So lots of research, and then lots of nights being up with some anxiety. Like, I hope I got that across the right way. I don't want to be wrong. So I don't know, Theanne, did you have a similar experience?
Yes, I'm so glad you said that because I feel the exact same way. So for Writing Sound Waves, that was a little bit more up my alley. So that book talks a lot about our senses, and I'm a sensory neuroscientist. I literally study how our body feels things. And so that one wasn't too bad, but there are other books in the series that touch on science topics that are obviously within my purview, but not my direct field of study, like ecosystems and food chains. That's book number 1, How to Test a Friendship. And so I definitely had to do some fact checking there because I kind of, I have the base knowledge, obviously, but anytime you're writing science for kids, you have to boil it down into simpler terms. And, what happens to the best of us, when you simplify something, you can end up creating a little bit of a myth, right? And so I'm very careful that as I'm simplifying, especially when it's out of my direct area of research, that I'm properly doing so. So yes, anxiety, 100%.
And so, Theanne, do you have people check your work? Do you have other scientists look at what you're doing?
No,
of course, you have editors. Yeah.
Yeah, largely no. I feel pretty confident. That's one thing that's nice about being a scientist, writing science books, is I feel confident in my ability to kind of fact check and whatnot, even when something is a little bit out of my area of expertise. So largely, I would say I don't. I feel pretty comfortable being able to boil it down. But I do go through, with the toothpick to make sure I'm finding everything.
Yeah. Right. I mean, yeah. Like one type of ruins everything, for example. But I'll start with Kim on this question and go back to Theanne. Did you see a need to do this? I guess is the question, because we're talking science and maybe it's just my perception. I don't think it's just me. When you start talking about science, technology, engineering, and math, it's like, well, that's way out there. That's the nerdy kids, etc. What inspired you to go there and I think you said you already liked doing these kinds of things, but what said to you, look, I want to get science concepts across, and here's a vehicle, so this is why I want to do this, or I saw that, I understood that kids just think this stuff is boring?
Well, for me, like, I'm an ocean girl. And so I'm out in the ocean a lot. And I like what you said at the end, like, science is us. We are science. We're in the ocean surfing. That's science. That's waves, wavelength. And there's a lot of physics going on. I was the girl who couldn't do math. Like, I obviously went into animation and I understood all the physics. I fell in love with physics. I animate. I mean, that's the most arty way you can describe physics there is, but I couldn't do the math. And I kind of felt like the not smart kid because I fell in love with the science and never felt like I was the type that could be a scientist. I'm so like in awe that you're a scientist. That's really cool.
Yeah, me too.
So as I'm in the ocean and I'm seeing problems with the ocean, we've got plastic issues. I mean, the kids are real cognizant of this stuff. And I thought I would like to approach science from how I understand it, like out in the ocean as a surfer, what relates to me, and letting the young people who are also interested in this know that it's not necessarily a math thing. It's an understanding thing, biology and physics of being in the ocean. And I think once you understand something better and you have a broader understanding of it, you have ownership and you want to protect. And so there's that little environmentalism where if you understand that you can't dump your motor oil in the stream, it's going to go to the ocean, and why that happens. So
very good. And at the end, did you think, hey, there's a void? There's a gap here between what I do and what I love, and then what children are learning, or maybe wanting to have a role in creating interest in something that for a lot of people might be like really, really brainy stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as a scientist throughout my career, even as an undergrad, as a grad student, I've constantly participated in science outreach activities and initiatives, brain fairs, all of that kind of stuff, because I'm really passionate about getting as many kids excited about science as possible. And I love your kind of like analogy, Kim, talking about how like surfing, there's a science to that, and getting to appreciate that there is a science to everything that we do. I think that's such an important message. And also, I would say that my motivations were, twofold. One was getting kids really excited about science, but then also, I was a little Black girl growing up in the 90s who didn't have a lot of books about science that featured children that looked like me. Traditionally speaking, right, girls Black kids, brown kids, we don't see them on the covers of science books as often as we should. And so for me, that was really important. That was really important to give as much visibility to different kinds of kids having fun, being good at science and being really interested in it. That I felt was like a really big void, like kind of a big obvious void. And I wanted to be, the one that could fill it.
And your goals, they all come through. Just the whole idea of diversity, having fun. Here's the cover. And both of you, look at this and look at this. And what do we see? Both of them.
Girls surfing.
Yeah. That's really cool. That's really cool. So, who's buying your materials? Who's using them? I'll start with you, Theanne, and go back to Kim.
Yeah, well, I definitely hope kids are buying them. But again, I would say that I had two audiences in mind for these books. One was obviously kids. I have such fond memories of reading books as a kid. I was an only child, so I did a lot of escaping into books and escaping into worlds that weren't my own. And so I very much wanted to recapitulate those feelings and tap into that very robust imagination that kids have with my books. But I also wrote these very much for teachers, whether you're a teacher in a classroom or whether you're a homeschooling teacher, whatever kind of educator that you are. I wrote these books for those people because there's so much material to cover nowadays. And I feel like there's this big kind of science literacy gap where they're seen as these two distinct entities. But let me tell you, as a professional scientist who runs a lab, I actually don't do that many experiments anymore. I spend most of my days reading papers and writing grants. And so I wanted to provide kind of a tool for teachers to show kids, that science is fun, that reading is fun, that they intersect, that they don't have to be these two separate things, that, the arts and the sciences really go hand in hand.
Very good. Very good. Same question, Kim. Maybe I'll mix it up a little bit. That and maybe are teachers ordering your books? And then I'll ask you this question, Kim, Theanne, because I want to know the answer to it. And are you hearing from the kids? And if you are, what are they saying about your book?
Well, technically, and this is an advanced copy. So these are my other books. These are the first two, and these are mysteries. So these are graphic novel mysteries, and they're fiction. But what I did with this book is I took my Sam and Jade, my main characters, and tried to tell the story of what they're encountering as surfer girls, smart surfer girls who solve mysteries in the ocean. What are they getting themselves? And I translated it into their voices. And so the book actually isn't out until July 13th. So I'm hoping people are ordering it. But I'll tell you one really cool moment I had was I got an email from a mom of a Girl Scout troop in Winter Springs, Florida. And she said, "Oh my gosh, my troop loves your books, your mysteries so much. And we see that you're having this STEM book come out. And we're going to do our STEM badge around the science of surfing." And that just made me so happy. So they've all pre-ordered. And I told them I would do a little video for them. But stuff like that makes me so happy because I feel like I'm reaching the people I want to reach. The people who, whether they read or whether they live on an ocean or not, maybe they're outdoor adventuresome girls. Strong and in nature and interested and curious about the world around them. And I'm hoping that through seeing my characters, that they'll be interested in what the characters have to say now about what the real world means to them.
Nice. We're hoping that these really pick up in popularity. Theanne, kind of the same question, but do you hear from any of your readers? Do you hear from teachers? Because this is not your first book. You have a few of these, yes?
Yeah, that's the third book in this series. So I've gotten a lot of really fun feedback. I've done a bunch, but I would say, I guess, maybe the positive side of, all of this virtual world that we're in is I've been able to do a ton of author visits this year. And it's just been so rewarding. I've done author visits with, military kids in Germany, in Korea, with Title I school in Florida. That really touched my heart because that was a school that was probably 90% Black again. And it's hard to describe how powerful it must feel for them to see someone who looks like them in a position where they can say "Oh, she's a professional scientist," you know? And so, and just also seeing little girls just seeing them see me has been just such a joy. And then I've gotten pictures from parents of their kids dressed up as some of the characters in the book. Like a friend of mine actually sent a picture of her son. He had dressed up as Deepak for his favorite character, who's not in book 3. He's in book 1. But it's been so rewarding to see the books kind of really hitting with the kids and seeing them just dive into this world, this kind of magical science world. And while science is not magic, right, it's based in fact, it does have a magical feeling. When I go into the lab, I get excited. And I imagine you feel the same way, like getting on a wave and just feeling the rush of that energy behind, right? And just harnessing that and seeing that energy received by the children and them feeling it themselves, right? It's unbeatable, to be
Fantastic.
honest.
I really like your energy, Theanne, and yes, you're opening doors in a number of ways. So, and just introduction to science, and then just letting kids, children of color, know, hey, you can do this too. And as a young girl or whatever, you can do this too. So,
and I will say, can I say one thing too? It's not even just about like Black and brown kids. In writing Sound Waves, I introduced a character, Henry, who is based off of, again, my friend's son. And my friend's son has autism and sensory processing disorder. And so I wanted to make kids who might be on the neurodiverse side also feel represented. And then in book 4, I was able to incorporate a disabled character who the illustrator of the series, just in book 2, he drew a bunch of different kids, and one of them happened to have a prosthetic leg. And so I was like, you know what? We can bring her into book 4. Why don't we show a little disabled girl also doing science and being really good at it? So I really try and just show science is for everyone. And it hasn't historically been that way, but it is. And it should be.
Well, and thank you for reminding me of that aspect, because I did notice that. And I don't think you ever say that Henry, it's Henry, right?
Yeah,
is autistic or anything, but that there's something going on with him, and the kids are modeling. I mean, they're being really sensitive and loving and caring and all of those things versus some of the bad things that happen. So showing kids really how to respond when you see these things. I mean, what comes into play too is something that's coming into play more, and that's the whole emotional intelligence piece of things. That we're emphasizing just human relationships and communications and such. So I really like that about what you're doing. Kim, let me ask. I have to ask this question because I know it's out there. Do you have folks who aren't really crazy about the graphic novel thing, the kind of work you're, whatever, just the whole this is not traditional, and we're bringing it down to a comic book level. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, I do, and I don't understand it because, like, I love books. I love, like, whatever book, if it's a poetry book, if it's a book, it's a newspaper, it's a magazine, it's a graphic novel, whatever it is. And I spent a little bit of my childhood in Japan, and Japan, like, in the 70s in Japan, you could open up Better Homes and Gardens type magazine from Japan and have manga as part of it, just as part of daily life. So I don't understand that, but I do know that after my first book came out and I was at ALA in Chicago, the American Librarian Association conference, there were some Midwestern librarians who were saying, I'm going to get this into my library. There's some pushback. There's some pushback from some, North Dakota, something, whatever states they were, and I live in Southern California, like the media capital of the world. And I never encounter that in my daily life, but going to the Midwest, I did see that exists. And it's surprising because I think anytime you can teach someone anything positive, it doesn't matter if the message is, an animated short on Sesame Street or, what it is, it's the information that's important. And if a kid responds to it and is interested in it, that's what we're looking for.
Very good.
It's all about storytelling, right? Storytelling. It's all about storytelling.
Yeah.
It's creative. It's about expressing your story. However, and there's all of this, I would say, kind of nonsense about like graphic novels aren't books. And that's just ridiculous. Reading is reading and seeing
it has pages.
Exactly. And it's still tapping into that imagination. It's still engaging all of those same neural mechanisms, right? Language comprehension. It's still all there. So it's just, I cannot wait till my daughters get a little bit older and we can buy all of the graphic novels.
Well,
I was the kid that just would stare at the picture. I mean, I'm an illustrator. I would stare at the picture forever and really fall into that world. And I hope young people do that and not just on video games and television.
Well, we're in another era. We need to meet them where they are, and I joke about it all the time, but it's true. I have young men living with me. It's a long story, but to the point is I start to talk to them about something that's interesting to me. 3 seconds into it, they're fast asleep. I think I'm a pretty interesting person, but they think I'm boring. And so it really is, we're in this time where, you better meet them where they are. You're not going to connect with them. And so I see that. My mentor, this goes back a long ways. She was criticized. She was the city librarian in National City. And she was criticized because she was bringing videotapes, movies into the library. And there was like, why are you doing that? And then she said, I could see that it worked. It brought families in who were coming in to check in videos. And here were the kids sitting on the ground reading books, families that would not have gone into the library in the first place, but they wanted to get those movies that they could rent or check out from the library. So you're going there. You're going to how visual we have become as a society. I'm trying to think of I don't remember the gentleman's name. Maybe if you're a fan of other graphic novelists, but he wrote a book called American Born Chinese. And
Gene Yang. Yes.
Yeah, and I should remember his name because I met him. But I remember bringing that book home, and it was one of those times like, oh, it wasn't me, it was the kids. They're like, oh, this is interesting. And I was like, really? I brought home something interesting. But it was a graphic novel, right? And so
a fantastic story. A fantastic story. Yeah.
Yeah. So so again, and even back then I was like, well, this is different. This is what we're doing. So let me ask, Kim, what are some of the lessons you've learned in the course of doing this work?
My favorite thing that I really had to focus down on and get right, because it's so complex, is the effect of the moon on our tides, how our planet responds. So you have our planet's rotating around a sun, and you've got a moon rotating around an Earth. And when certain things line up beautifully and they pull on the planet, the oceans bulge, and our planet is spinning through these bulges, making tides. And when you graph those tides, it looks like a heartbeat. And you realize how all of our continents are connected by this pulsing ocean that's being acted upon by the sun and the moon. There's something so poetically beautiful about that. And how when the ocean touches all of these different continents, it presents in different ways with different wildlife, with different, it's a fantastic thing, but having to really understand that the moon cycles and their effects and really get that right and be able to translate it down to where, a 10-year-old could understand what I'm trying to say. That was challenging for me and so rewarding when I got it.
Yeah, so you had the visual of the vacuum cleaner on the water balloon, which is
I made that up. I'm like, what could stuff that hard and pull, and what could, I'm like, okay, what would kids have in a house? A water balloon, a vacuum cleaner. So
yeah, just cool. Theanne.
Yeah, I would say the most challenging part for me was learning to put the story first, right? Because in the end, what I'm writing are fiction books. And obviously, as a scientist, someone who's really passionate about science and science education, I was like, okay, so you're going to learn this, and you're going to learn this, and then you're going to learn this, and this is going to be the story. And then I was like, wait a second. This is a fiction story, and fiction stories are about characters. They're about how characters evolve and transform and grow. And so it was hard for me in the beginning to figure out the best way to put this story first while still making them very much science-themed books. And so what I learned is that the science is the world in which they're moving, right? The science is the maker maze. The science is, is all of the challenges that they go on and all of that, and the little experiments that they do while they're in the maker maze. But what's moving the story forward isn't the science, it's the characters and how they're interacting with each other. So I would say that was the most challenging thing for me to learn how to do, was to like, okay, Theanne, cool your science jets and learn to put that story in the forefront and make it about the characters.
You've done a good job with it. Now, and I know, Kim, you're your own illustrator, but Theanne, working with Reggie Brown, Is that easy thing for you? Is there some kind of like just connection, or it's like you got to tell him what to do, or he's like, I got these ideas for these pages?
Yeah, no, Reggie is awesome. He's also from San Diego, by the way. And he is super, super awesome. So I might provide small feedback, especially kind of in the beginning when we were first really kind of developing the characters and kind of getting a feel for everything. I might give some like slight science feedback or something like that. But I am in awe of people who can illustrate, because I may be a writer, but man, my, ability to draw is just so
Mine too.
all of that up to Reggie and just provide, basically if there's something that might be presented that could be construed as maybe scientifically not as accurate, or maybe it just doesn't quite fit the story somehow, or I don't know, very small details, but he is wonderful at what he does. And I'm so lucky to have an illustrator as talented as he is on the series.
Yeah, you have illustrations on just about every page. I mean, there's print too. I mean, of course, we want that. And
yeah, we did a lot of work to keep the word count down so that we could really bolster it with illustrations. And that helps with the science too, because we are covering some kind of tricky concepts for recently independent readers, who don't have like a teacher or a parent explaining every little thing to them. So we really wanted to support the science with good illustrations.
Very good. I like, by the way, the scratch and smell piece of the. So I'm looking at that. Anyway, I wouldn't go back and do that. Liar. Interesting. Very interesting. Kim, I have to guess you do your content first, and then maybe you do the illustration, or like to sit around and draw.
With me, I think in pictures, but I work with an editor who requires words, and so. This one was a little different though, and I kind of presented chapters, and here's the material I will cover scientifically, because normally I write a film script. When I'm writing a graphic novel, I write a film script, and it's, exterior day, the top of danger point, and then describe the action with dialogue. And this was different. So it kind of went chapter by chapter. And then I do start working out the pictures, but they come to me, pictures come to me first, and so then it's my job to kind of like take that down into words. Okay. And I'll tell you, like I said, I'm really jealous that Theanne's a scientist, because fortunately I fell in with a scientist at Cal State Long Beach. Because I had to have someone check my science. I know you asked that earlier. And we have this amazing Cal State Long Beach Shark Lab, and Dr. Chris Lowe is at the Shark Lab. And I was doing projects with him with my animation students, converting his data into animation so that it could be presented nicely. And thank God I had him there, because he's like, actually, actually, that, like you said, that picture's not quite accurate. You want to do this. And I had someone, you can do that to your illustrator, but I had someone do that to me.
Good for you. Awesome. Good for you. Yeah, good to have the help. Well, we're towards the end of our time. I wanted to give you both the opportunity, just maybe to anything you want to say about your work, the future of the graphic literature, the young people today. Theanne, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'll just quickly say that I just feel really honored to be able to write this series, to have it, so well received. I think they're important. I think it's important to show a diverse array of children that are just having fun, doing science. Also, one thing I want to mention is that each book has 2 do-it-yourself, at-home, simple science experiments in the back, because science is about doing. Before I became a professor and I was actually in the lab, my day was doing experiments. It was tinkering, it was making, it was building, it was fixing, it was failing, it was all of those things, right? And I want that message to also hit home with kids, that science isn't just about memorizing and isn't just about learning facts. It's about having fun and about thinking outside of the box and being creative.
Very good, very cool. And I like the whole idea, and it's true. It does feel like magic. It really does. And you're both communicating that. Kim.
So I guess I would like to say, like I said, I globetrotted the planet in my childhood, and really have a deep love for Southern California, for our color palette, for the diverse population here, for the energy. Like I live in Long Beach, the energy of Long Beach, all the water and the wildlife. And I really, really try hard to push all that Southern California love, the color palette, the we're healthy, we're outdoors, we're friendly. I try to push that into my books so that if you're here, you're like, yeah. And if you're not here, if you're experiencing a really hard winter in North Dakota, you can go someday. I'm going to go check that out. But we do have a really special place here in Southern California. And I was always, while I enjoyed my journey all around the planet, I was always so happy to be back here and back home. So I'm sharing the love is what I'm doing.
Very good. And now I know the names of those little sluggish things that get out there on the. I didn't know what those were. I thought they were sea slugs, but they are rabbits.
The sea hare. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I was like, what are those?
They're really big and they're slimy and squishy, and you see them in the tide pools.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, I want to thank you both for joining us. Your energy, enthusiasm, your great works. This is the Magnificent Makers. This is Theanne Griffith with Reggie Brown. And then there you go. Hold that up. And then we have the Science of Surfing, Surfside Girls. I love it. Guide to the Ocean. Kim Dwinell. It's very good. I need to get a copy of one of those. And just to mention that these books are on sale. You can purchase the author books from the indie bookseller partners at bookshop.org/shop/SDFOB. I think you'll see that somewhere. I think it's there somewhere. And then also my organization, so you'll know, I'm Jose Cruz. I'm the CEO for the San Diego Council on Literacy. And our organization, we are the beneficiaries of the Festival of Books that is put on by the San Diego Union-Tribune. So really appreciate the San Diego Union-Tribune, our authors, anybody who attends this event for their support, so that more children and more adults are reading the books that both of you and others are producing. So just so you'll know, my organization, you can visit us at literacysandiego.org, and you can continue to join us for a full program of author panels, exciting demonstrations, and live entertainment streamed entirely online. All videos will be available at sdfestivalsofbooks.com. And thank you, audience. Again, I'm Jose Cruz, and I want to thank all of you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great to meet you all.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Wonderful conversation.